The eye of the Tigers. LSU going to Missouri, 12 Eastern, ESPN. LSU favored by 6.5 points right now. LSU, their SEC title hopes are very much so still intact. They do not control their own destiny. They're fighting right now. They're fighting. And we talked about it at the top of this live show. I'm just curious how they respond after playing just essentially an arcade game against Ole Miss. Like, everybody was going for their highest score in that game. Ole Miss is scoring points. LSU scoring points. LSU's got problems defensively. We'll talk about that. I'm curious to see how they respond after a game like that. It's still a year 2 team under Brian Kelly. Yes, they're further along than they were last year, but there's the opportunity now for there to be a little bit of a schism within that locker room. Hey, offense, we're holding it down. Defense, what are you doing? I'm not even insinuating that I know a thing about that locker room and insinuating at all that that's what's happening. But, I mean, common sense would allow you to believe, hey, when one side of the operation isn't getting it done, how does the other side respond? Is it, hey, we'll pick you up, no problem? Or is it a little bit of impatience, a little bit of frustration? I don't know. I'm curious to see. I expect LSU to respond in a positive manner, but I'm just curious to see that. Curious to see how they respond against a good Missouri team. Now, Missouri, I don't know that a lot of people are gauging this properly. Missouri is very quietly undefeated. And they have, I think, a ton of quiet confidence about themselves. And they're getting into the meat of their schedule right now. This is where we're really going to get to see what Missouri has under the hood. That's great. You beat Vanderbilt. Heck, that win against Kansas State was nothing short of awesome. That was a really good win. I don't want to pretend that that wasn't still a phenomenal statement for Missouri against Kansas State. But LSU now presents their own issues. I think presents their own personnel that could give Missouri problems. So, with that being said, let's jump right into it, baby. What are the matchups that will determine this game, determine the winner of this game? The first one I'm looking at is Luther Burden, wide receiver from Missouri, that is pretty much all everything as a freshman, against this LSU secondary. And LSU fans, you heard me talk about your secondary, you say, oh boy, we're doing this again? We're talking about the secondary? Okay, that's fine. You want to talk about the secondary, you can do what you want to do. But Missouri, the way that they draw things up for Luther Burden is nothing short of just like mad scientist-esque. They scheme it up for him, and they have the approach every single game. If you're Missouri, we're going to let our very best football player impact this game as much as possible. Last year, you kind of wanted to see more of that from the talented freshman and see them get him involved more in the game plan. This year, through 5 games, he has 4 with over 100 receiving yards. Went ballistic last week against Vanderbilt. It's pretty much been a trend for him. Brady Cook has been really efficient, really effective, has not thrown an interception yet, knock on wood. My question for LSU in regards to Luther Burden, can LSU just manage him? Like, that's kind of how we like to approach these conversations around dynamic players like a Luther Burden. I don't think stopping him is really on the table. Can you just manage him? Can you soften the blow of what he's going to bring to the table? Because if you can, then you take away Missouri's most explosive playmaker and you allow your offense probably to get a little bit of leverage. At the very least, maybe you force you force Missouri, a lot of Tigers here, trying to keep them straight. You force Missouri into a mode where they have to find other ways to score and find other playmakers to get the football to. And maybe your offense is able to, if you're LSU, separate just a little bit. But if you can't, like, Missouri's going to be able to match what LSU does best, and that is score points. And that kind of becomes more a game of, all right, we're in a track meet, just like we were last week. I don't know if LSU wants to live that way. I promise you, they don't want to live in a way where Luther Burden's getting over 100 yards receiving like he has in virtually every single game this year. Now, what I will say, though, if LSU gives extra attention to Luther Burden, keep an eye on Theo Weiss Jr. If that name sounds familiar, he's a transfer wide receiver from Oklahoma, big body receiver. I would expect him to get some touches as well, especially if LSU tries to give a lot of attention to double cover Luther Burden or bracket him or whatever. I think Theo Weiss Jr. could be kind of the Robin to his Batman. No shade to Theo Weiss Jr. We're big Robin fans over here. But that's kind of the reality that I think we find ourselves in when it comes to the matchup within this game. Now, the other matchup I'm watching, on the other side of things, when LSU has the football, Mike Denbrock and the LSU run game, they are extremely deceptive and do a really good job of getting the defenses to move that they've played against to this point in the year. How are they able to influence the second level of Missouri's defense? Because LSU, their whole influence, their whole game plan starts with running the football. everything they want to do comes off of that, whether it's RPO, whether it's play action, whether it's deep shots downfield. It all starts with being able to force that front seven to at least play the run game honestly, to try and stop what LSU does running the football. And when they get that run game going, I think they're really difficult to stop because of how Jaden Daniels has pushed the ball vertically downfield a lot better. Missouri's only allowing 2.9 yards a carry. It's good for number 13 in the country. They're allowing 83 rush yards a game. Good for number 10 in the country. Now, I will also say this. LSU is going to be a different beast than what Missouri has seen to this point. Kansas State's probably the closest to that, but LSU as a whole, I think, is going to be a little bit of a different tempo than what Missouri's seen. So that Missouri run defense still really solid, but can they hold up to what LSU brings to the table? Because if LSU gets some success running the football and gets that second level of the defense, those linebackers start, to try to fill and run support a little bit more quickly, well, then the RPO game opens up. Malik Neighbors gets the ball in space. Maybe those safeties roll down. Brian Thomas gets one-on-one. And we've seen this. When LSU gets one-on-one coverage, good things happen for that offense. Jaden Daniels puts up big numbers passing. Probably a lot of points are scored for LSU. They force you to match them in doing that. Now, if they're able to have some success stopping the run as Missouri, then you put the game more on your secondary if you're Missouri. And I don't pretend to imagine that Missouri just plays lockdown on the back end, but at the very least, you can have more attention on these playmakers that really scare you if you're Missouri. You get to have more attention on Malik Neighbors. You get to have more attention on Brian Thomas. Like, you're able to play a little bit more with everything in front of you because you're able to stop that run game with the front seven. So we'll see what happens there. That's a big variable. It's a big hinge point. Also, watch how the pre-snap movement of LSU impacts that Missouri second level and maybe even third level of that defense. If they're able to get them running with the jet sweep motion or the running back behind the quarterback kind of motion, we call that a bling motion. At least we did in our offense in college. That could be something that messes with their eyes. Could also create for gaps in the defense for Missouri. Watch that if you're an LSU fan or if you're a Missouri fan, how that dictates the big plays that LSU gets or doesn't get. If Missouri can play that honest and is able to communicate effectively when they do motion and kind of get aligned how they want to get aligned, maybe LSU has a little bit of acclimation period, as we like to say on this show. So keep an eye on that. At the end of the day, man, this very well could come down to a quarterback duel. Like, Jaden Daniels has been a new version of himself from what he was a season ago. He was really good in the run game last year, but we were wondering, like, hey, is he going to be able to pick it up in the pass game? Can they unhitch the wagon, as we like to say, in the pass game? He's done that. He has been dialed in. Speaking of being dialed in, man, Brady Cook has been awesome. He's taken this Missouri offense to a new level. And this was a guy that we were talking about before the season. Like, is he going to be the starting quarterback at Missouri? He has been, and he's been crushing it. Both these quarterbacks are top 25 in the country in QBR. LSU is scoring 37 points a game. I wonder, and I'm concerned about Missouri being able to score at that kind of a clip. Now, if the defense is able to hold up their end of the deal and LSU is not able to be as potent offensively, well, that changes this conversation altogether. But I think LSU has just kind of found their mojo offensively. I don't see there being a world where Missouri does just totally give LSU fits offensively. I don't see a world where they throw Jaden Daniels totally off his game. Now, it'll be on the road, so there's an element you got to bake in there for how Missouri could play LSU and the element the crowd could play in this game. And does LSU have a letdown in this game? Those are all valid questions. Those are all valid variables to consider in this football game. But I think LSU being able to score points makes it the kind of game they want to play. I think they want to play in a track meet. Now, they want to play some defense, too. They'd like to just roll, I'm sure, and have the secondary play the game of their lives and stop Luther Bird and stop Theo Weiss and maybe force Brady Cook to throw his first interception. But even so, if it becomes a situation where what we know about LSU has held true, where they have trouble stopping Missouri through the air, and they have trouble defensively being able to bring the juice, I think the offense is still something you can lean on, and I think the offense will be more explosive than Missouri's on this day. Again, guarding against a letdown spot for LSU after a big game against Ole Miss, I think LSU wins this game. I think Missouri does still score points. I think it could be back and forth. You think you could see Missouri even have some runs in this game where it's like, hey, Missouri's up a score. Missouri's up 10. I think at the end of the day, LSU wins this football game 37-33. The hard count, brought to y'all by Game Time. Now, Game Time is the place for last-minute ticket deals, and you don't have to worry about planning months in advance and worrying about, well, are we going to be able to get to the game? Is it going to be this? Is it going to be that? Like, you can wake up the day of the game. Hey, you know what? Actually, Oxford's not that far away. I do want to get to that Arkansas game. But it's Saturday. I know it's Saturday. Game Time's got us covered. Like I said, last-minute deals. Best prices. Guaranteed. That's how Game Time gets down. So, get exclusive flash deals on tickets on all the sports and entertainment events. Now, I want to make sure we just give a little nod to the entertainment side of things. Comedy shows, concerts. I think Drake's actually still on tour. So if you want to get to a Drake concert, I would imagine Game Time could have you covered for all the dogs. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time says, hey, we're not cool with that. We're going to credit you 110% of the difference, is what Game Time says. So here's what we're going to do. Snag the tickets without all the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code HARDCOUNT for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code HARDCOUNT for $20 off. Download Game Time today, y'all. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Hey, y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.